Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday evening. Welcome to the weekend. Hope you guys are having a great start to your weekend as always. Not going to hold you up long tonight. Really, there's not a ton to talk about. In fact, I debated on whether even making a video tonight, but I want to keep the content rolling as I know eventually things are going to pick up, especially as we get a little bit closer to hurricane season. We're going to just talk about a couple things, talk about the tropics, and talk about, kind of a just a brief run over of what could potentially happen this weekend. Not a whole lot's going to happen. We're finally starting to quiet down a little bit as far as severe weather. I've said that a couple times over the last, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks, and it turns out, we really weren't slowing down. But it really looks like we're going to enter a somewhat slower period over the next 7 days. Now, there's going to be some severe weather chances still each day, depending on location, like Sunday. You got to watch out for a little severe weather. But in general, I don't expect any kind of big-time elevated severe risk really going forward. So we're just going to talk about some basic things. And if you guys have not subscribed, definitely consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Things are just slowing down right now. We're just moseying right on along throughout the year. I can't talk right. And I appreciate people who continue to support me. It really means a lot. Some of the comments have been awesome about your prayers being answered. The power of prayer is powerful. It really is. It really is. So it's awesome hearing that some of y'all's prayers have been answered for sure. And it's always great hearing the feedback and seeing the feedback from others. So if you guys got anything that I can pray about, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rocking and rolling. Don't want to hold you guys up too long this evening, but let's briefly talk about the tropics. The GFS is still showing this. I mentioned you're going to see a lot of crazy hype posts on Facebook, Twitter, but they love to run crazy on Facebook because I feel like Facebook has a big time, quicker hitting, harder hitting algorithm than maybe Twitter does. And of course, you got YouTubers out there will do it too, but they'll put these hype posts and they'll put a picture of this crazy looking hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. And they really won't put any detailed information behind it. They do it for likes, they do it for clicks, and it's a great way to get their platform more growth. And at the end of the day, they don't care whether they're putting out false information or not. So just be aware of that. I don't try to get into the drama of all that, but it happens. It really does. But we'll talk about what the GFS is continuing to show here. And, going forward, we're getting into next week. Just keep your eyes down here. And this is the latest GFS. We're getting into about midweek next week. And then as we get into late next week, around really, I would say 6-7 days out, you start to see a lot of convection, a lot of moisture down here south of Cuba in the Caribbean Ocean. Now it starts to pop off of a low pressure as we get into around this time next week. So about 7 days out. What the latest GFS wants to do is kind of what the last few GFSs have done over the last really 2 to 3 days. Pop a low pressure, wants to, have some marginal development, and then it moves it into the southern areas of the Gulf of Mexico, tries to make it strengthen, and then gets into an all-out hurricane, and then it plows into the Big Bend area of Florida, per the latest GFS. Now, the GFS before this has it a hurricane over here. The GFS before that has a hurricane way over here, or a tropical storm. GFS before that has it back way over here. So, it's everywhere. And let me tell you, the GFS is not that great in long range. Now, it has done a better job than I feel like than the European has in sniffing out tropical systems over the last 2 years. But we're still not in a favorable time of the year for this to happen. But I will mention, you're going to see crazy posts everywhere. Please don't bite into it. I know for somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of knowledge on the weather and don't know any better, I know it's very easy to share this kind of stuff, but I know this is likely not going to happen. But the GFS has been showing this, and it doesn't matter how many people tell it that it's not going to happen. It is not folding. I'll tell you that. It's been showing it. And it's pretty much saying, hey, I'm going to keep showing this until the cows come home. And y'all can tell me I'm not going to happen all day, but it's still showing it. So it's going to be interesting, especially as we get into the end of the weekend. Let me tell you, if it's still showing this by the end of the weekend into Monday, Tuesday especially, then I think we have to start to look at this a little differently. Like a little bit more realistically, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But we'll continue to watch this and try to figure it out on what's going to happen down here in the Caribbean and then maybe into the Gulf of Mexico. But I will tell you, the European, for the same kind of time frame, doesn't really show anything. In fact, you get into that same time frame around next weekend, doesn't show any low pressures in this area. And this is per just like operational run. Pops a low pressure actually on the Pacific side, something known as a CAG, Central American Gyrum. Basically is a lot of convection that can form over Central America and then eventually drift onto the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean and potentially pop off a low pressure, and eventually maybe it can form into a tropical system. Now, there is going to be a somewhat favorable MJO phase in this area, and that goes into a whole nother section of weather that I'll talk about a little bit more when it's needed. But there is going to be a favorable phase, if you will, kind of like when we're talking winter weather for tropical activity. But we're still not in a favorable time of the year. We're really not. But you'll have more rising air rather than sinking air. When you have more rising air, tropical systems have a better chance to develop. Sinking air, they don't. But we'll talk more about that when the time is right. But we look at the GEFS ensembles. GEFS ensembles. I always struggle with that. Basically, the ensembles of the GFS. And it still has a signal down here, right? See where all these numbers are? You got an 89. That's basically saying a 989 millibar low pressure. And then you got the O2, which is basically saying 1,002 millibar low pressure. So in general, it's just trying to show you that it likes the idea of a low pressure developing down here. And as we get into about 9 to 10 days out, it drifts it into the Gulf of Mexico. But still not a strong signal. I mean, it looks like a strong signal, but at the same time, you don't have a lot of numbers. You just have several, not a ton of them. But you look at the European ensembles, which we'll look at Weather Nerds, which is a great free site, by the way. Great. It's kind of weird to use, but it's a great site that you'll see me use more and more as we get into hurricane season. This is kind of the same deal. It just shows lines, and it doesn't really show anything, right? It just shows a couple of lines. It doesn't show a whole lot of development. It shows more development on the Pacific side of Central America. So there's definitely disagreement here, big time. European is just, and the ensembles are just not biting on this at all. One thing that is making everybody question the GFS is the fact that this time of the year you have a ton of shear. Shear rips apart tropical systems. It basically displaces convection from the low-level circulation. And you really need convection around that low-level circulation, which is basically kind of the breathing mechanism of these tropical systems. There's a lot of other things too, but see where all these bright colors of red are? See where this low pressure is per the latest GFS? It wants to plow it right into this high level of shear, and at the same time begin to strengthen it, which makes absolutely no sense. A tropical system is not going to strengthen in a high level of shear, so keep that in mind. But that's what the GFS wants it to do as we're getting into the long range, so it's kind of weird. So we'll continue to figure this out. I don't want to talk it to death, but it is definitely something to monitor and to, definitely touch back base on, I think, as we get into the end of the weekend. But as far as temperatures throughout the weekend, these are temperatures compared to average. I think it'll be a nice weekend in the Northeast, for example, the Ohio Valley, probably warmer than average. But anywhere you see reds, that's warmer than average temperatures. Blues, cooler than average temperatures. But in general, you don't really see one extreme to the other. And one thing that really catches my eye is the fact that I think the Northeast is going to finally get a nice spring-like week. In fact, it hit 90 degrees in Maine today. I forgot what town hit 90 degrees, but there was an area that hit 90 degrees in Maine today. I mean, that's pretty crazy for early June. Not completely unheard of, I guess you would say. Not like, kind of one of them situations where you go, wow, that is crazy. But, I mean, at the same time, that's pretty impressive. But nothing too crazy this weekend. It really, really isn't as far as you look at systems. I think you'll continue to deal with some of this moisture in the southeast due to the spinning upper level low. But nothing too crazy. And you look at the rest of the country, and I really think you could see some severe weather, I think, as we get into Sunday. But, tomorrow, a couple areas of a marginal risk of severe weather. I think there will be storms in general for anybody in the eastern and central U.S. But as far as severe weather, I don't see a big threat anywhere. I really don't. Now, Sunday, it's a little bit different story. You got a big slight risk. This is uptrend. Not sure, but I still don't think this is going to be a big deal at all. But you definitely got a threat of severe storms for a larger area stretching from eastern Oklahoma all the way to far western sections, basically all the way to Pittsburgh, PA. So we'll continue to watch out for that, and I'll give you an update on the weather for tomorrow morning. But that's all I got. Y'all have an awesome start to your weekend. Love you all, and I appreciate you guys, and I'll talk to you all in the morning.